Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. Welcome to the Kennedy Center Performing Arts Series. It's brought to you by the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and the Prince William Network. I'm Billy Taylor. I'm your host for today's show. It's called All About Jazz, and what we're going to try to do is to show you some of the things that we as a trio do when we play jazz. We're a jazz trio, and we have many things that are from the jazz repertoire, some of the things that are, well, things that you might be familiar with. And so we hope that you'll enjoy what we do. Joining me are the members of my trio. We have Chip Jackson on bass. Chip Jackson on bass. And Winard Harper on drums. Now, what we want to share with you today is how we do what we do. A lot of people hear us playing, and they don't know that we're improvising, that is, making up things as we go along. Now, we just don't pull those things out of the air. We have ways of determining, well, this is where we are musically, and this is how we do what we do. Now, we want you to understand the language of jazz, and to help you do that, one of the things we're going to do is explain as we go along some of the things that we do. Now, the piece you just heard, since we're in Virginia, I call it Hi, Y'all. I figured. It's a blues piece, and it's one of the elements of this particular piece is it has 12 bars, 12 measures. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, up to 12. And so we know exactly where we are, and you can kind of feel it after you've played it for a while. Now, what I would like for you to do, just so you can be with us as we do these things, is to join us. I'm going to have Chip Jackson play another blues melody, and I'm going to count with you just to show you how we do it as he's playing the melody. You ready? I want you to count with me. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of these is measures. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 13. So that's 12 bars. So you can always tell where you are, because if you're playing a blues, it kind of goes like this. Now, I want you to count when I do that. I'm going to play the same melody. I'm not going to start you off. You have to start yourself off. Were you with me? Oh, that's good. All right. Now, sometimes blues could have just 4 bars or 6 bars, or depending on what the words were. So sometimes they were very short. Sometimes they were even longer than the 12 bars. They may be 24 bars or 48 bars. But I want you to focus on the melody, not just on the blues, but another kind of melody we use. Now, we call this form A-A-B-A. Now, the reason we call it that is because it's divided into 8-bar segments. Now, each segment has 8 bars. So the first segment of this piece is going to be this. Starts. And I'll play the melody right. So the melody sounds something like that. But when we play it together, and we're going to have all kinds of things going on. And we're going to start here. Thank you. Now, as you can see, the first 8 bars had a melody. The second 8 bars had a melody that sounded just like the first 8 bars. Then we played something different for the third 8 bars. For the fourth 8 bars, we went back and played something just like the first 8 bars. So A, B, A was what we were doing. 4 sections, and 3 of them are very much alike, and the others are a little different. Now, one of the things that we try to do when we are playing this kind of music, we have a rhythmic feeling. And so improvisation, as we do it, means making up a melody as you go along. It really means just thinking of something and say, how can I make that into music? I can just take a phrase and do something like this. So it has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. Now, another thing I like to do is to just take some chords like this and make up a melody. So I can make up a melody just thinking about those kinds of chords. As a matter of fact, because I play the piano, I can do different melodies with either hand. Something with my left hand, something different with my right hand. Now this is a song called Sweet Georgia Brown. I'll play the melody first. That's the way the melody begins. But I'm not going to play the melody. I'm going to take the harmonic structure of the piece and make up my own melody. My own melody sounds like this. Thank you. Now, that has just melodies, which are just made up. Just things. If you asked me to do that again, I couldn't do it because I don't remember what I played. But I made it up as I was going along. And you can do that not only with melodies, you can do that with harmony. For instance, if I take a melody like this, that's a lovely melody by a man named Jerome Kern, and it's called Yesterdays. But if I took if I added some notes to that, the harmony notes, it might sound like this. However, if I wanted to change those harmonies, I might do something like this. could do something like this. So each time I'm changing the harmonies and I'm keeping the melody the same. So that is just to let you know that sometimes I can make up a melody. Sometimes I can just make other harmonies work behind that melody. Now, a wonderful pianist in jazz is also a great composer. His name is Oscar Peterson. And this is a melody that he wrote. It's called Laurentide Waltz. He's Canadian. So he wrote it for a place in his home state where he lives in Canada. And he calls it Laurentide Waltz, and it's a very lovely piece in 6/8 time. We've been playing in 4/4 time, everything I've done so far. But this has 6 beats in every measure instead of 4 beats. And so it sounds a little different. I'm going to play the melody first so you hear what I'm deviating from. So the melody sounds like this. Thank you. I hope you were able to follow the melody because I played several variations on the melody as I was playing. But we all do that. We just not just on the piano, but on the bass and on the drums. And melody is a very important part of what we do. Everybody is recognized by the way he or she makes melodies when he's playing jazz. Now, let's take a quick look at the other members of the trio and see what they do with their instruments and see how they perform. You heard how they perform as a trio, how they support me. So they're doing things which help me do what I do in a much better way. They're adding little things to what I play. Now, when they work alone or when they're playing solo, then I try to add little things to what they play. For instance, let's take a look at what Chip does on the bass. This is a bass violin, so he uses the bow sometimes. Why do you use the bow, Chip?
Well, the bow gets a longer note, and it sounds like a violin, only much lower, and you can play expressively like a human voice.
So that's your singing voice. Well, when you are not using the bow, a little while ago you were playing pizzicato, you were plucking the strings. You do that in a variety of ways. How do you do that?
Well, there's lots of things you can do with the right hand. There's you can use one finger or two or even three, or any combinations of those. Strumming is a good thing to do. I use that a lot. And I'm doing a double stop with the left hand. That's 2 notes. You can do them down low, or you can do them up high. Or you can do sliding is good. I do a lot of sliding. You can do sliding slow or fast, or you can do a lot of variety in that. Vibrato is a good thing to use. And I do what's called pull-offs with the left hand. Those are rhythmic embellishments to the playing. So you put all those things. And one more thing, I use bent notes too. Sometimes I'll bend a note like a guitar. That sounds almost like a sitar or a guitar. So these are all the techniques I put together to make my style.
Well, it's a personal style, and one of the things that is very personal the way you do it, when someone says swing, when I was playing on the piano, I was doing certain rhythmic things that gave it a certain kind of propulsion. You could feel, hopefully, a certain kind of rhythm. How do you do that on the bass?
Well, in the modern straight-ahead jazz style, the most common rhythm is 4/4 time, where the bass is walking or playing every beat of the pulse. And with inflections and other embellishments, you can make it sound like this. So that's the basic quarter note style, but with a lot of extra things added in there. The basic quarter note style is basically from the swing era, when you'd hear 2 notes on each one. But But as it got more complex, you could add your own inflections to it and make it swing more. I think it makes it swing more when you add your own inflections. And then that's when I'm playing the accompaniment style to other solos. Then I can play a melody or a melodic solo and use more melodic types of phrasing. Like here's a melody that was actually written on the bass. Horace Silver made it into a tune called Sister Sadie, but it was originally a bass melody. So in modern jazz, the bass can play melodically the way a trumpet or a guitar can.
Well, one of the people who started people thinking like this was a man named Oscar Pettiford. Was he much of an influence on you?
Oh, yeah. Oscar Pettiford was the first one to really move the bass up into that kind of phrasing that I was just playing, where before that only trumpet players or piano players or guitar players would do that kind of thing. But Oscar Pettiford said, well, I can do that too. So he really was the one that advanced the bass so that it could play those kind of lines the way the other instruments were.
Would you like to play an Oscar Pettiford tune?
Yeah, yeah.
Here's one called Tricrotism. Tricrotism. Chip Jackson. Chip Jackson. Well, you heard what I did at the piano and what I did with Chip when I was accompanying him. Now, accompanying both of us was Winard Harper here on the drums. Now, Winard, you're doing 4 different things when you play. You're doing one thing with your left foot, something else with your right foot, and something different with each hand. Why do you use all these cymbals and all these drums? What do you do with all that?
Well, let's see. I use everything to embellish and help make the music swing. Mm-hmm. The number of cymbals I use just for colors.
Mm-hmm. Show me what you mean.
Well, this is a crash cymbal. usually used for punctuation and crashing, although I can ride on it sometimes. This is my main ride cymbal. But if I'm playing, let's say, different songs, different passages, I may want to change up the color a little bit, or different instruments. I may want to switch from here to go to another color here. Or sometimes get something a little funky and trashy. And this is the hi-hat, which is played with a pedal. Normally on 2 and 4, but different things you can do with it. It has a top cymbal and a bottom cymbal.
So you have all these sounds just in the cymbals alone. Now, in the drums, you also have a variety of sounds. You do one thing with your foot.
Yeah, the bass drum.
Now, what are some of the other things, the sounds you get?
Snare drum. Tom.
Now, Chip and I played a melody a minute ago. Why don't you play around with that same melody as though you were playing that melody on the drums?
See.
You can play around it.
Which one was it?
That one. Yeah, 12 bars. All right. Now, everything you do when you're playing the drums swings in its own personal way. Now, but you like to play fast. Everybody that plays drums seems to have the ability to really get over that instrument. It's a lot to get over. Is there anything special about do you have to do anything special when you play more rapidly than when you normally play, say, with me or with someone who's playing another instrument?
The main thing with playing fast is being able to play slow. If you can play slow, then you should be able to play fast.
So you practice.
And the real key is keeping the same feeling, making sure that you have that same bounce, the swinging it. Everything that you play should swing.
Well, we're going to let you demonstrate what you're talking about, and you can start off by swinging an introduction to Lover by Rodgers and Hart. Winard Harper. Winard Harper and Lover. Thank you very much. Now we're going to take some questions from those of you who are listening across the country and from those right here in the audience in front of us. The number to call is posted on your screen. Let's take some questions from the audience first, right here. Is there someone? Yeah, right here. Okay.
Hello, my name is Steven Sauce from Bevel Middle School.
Hi.
I have a question. Did it take long to develop the ability to improvise altogether, or did it just come all of a sudden?
No, it took a long time. It's like learning a language. When you began to speak, you spoke in small words. You imitated your father or your mother or someone else. And as you learn to use the language better, you use bigger words, you use longer sentences, and so forth. That's the way it is when we improvise. We started by improvising on very simple chords, very simple melodies. And as we begin to become more familiar with the instrument and how to do it, we could play faster, we could play longer, we could do more with it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Jessica Lamp. I go to Bevel Middle School too. What about the music makes it swing?
The rhythm of the music has a great deal to do with the manner in which it swings, but I'm going to ask Winard to talk about what he thinks makes the ensemble swing. I mean, what he tries to do, because that's his responsibility in this kind of organization.
Any and everything you play should swing. Each music, I think, has its thing that makes it swing, gives it the bounce. And the swing, to me, is the syncopation, the thing that moves you, makes you want to dance. No matter what it is you play, was so the syncopation and the feeling makes the music swing.
Thank you. We're going to take a call from Boston, Massachusetts. Fine, how are you?
My name is John. I just wanted to ask, what were some of your influences as kids? And growing up?
My influences?
Yeah.
Well, on piano, I first listened to Fats Waller, then I listened to Art Tatum, and they were my main influences, but I've been influenced by just about everybody I've ever heard who played the piano, because there's so much to learn and so many people who have different approaches to playing jazz on the piano. So I'm still studying, still learning, still being influenced. Yes?
My name's Heather from Grand Park, and I have a question for the drummer. What makes one cymbal sound from another?
In the making of the cymbals, whether they're made thick, thin, large, or small, changes the sound. Thicker cymbals tend to have a higher pitch to them. And the thinner the cymbal is, it comes out a little darker. Smaller cymbals, too, seem to have a higher pitch. And that's one of the smaller ones. This is one that's a little larger. This happens to be just a little thicker. You hear the high pitch of it. This one is thin, and the way it was made is kind of the Chinese cymbal, so it's kind of a trashy sound.
Thank you. We have a call from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
How are you? My name is Latif Harrison.
I'm very well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I wanted to ask the drummer, how long had he been playing, and who was some of his idols coming up? Well, he sounds a lot like Elvin Jones. Seems to be he's one of my favorites too.
Oh, he's one of everybody's favorites. I've had a lot of favorites growing up. My first influence to pull me into playing jazz was Max Roach, and he still is one of my great loves. Elvin, definitely. A lot of Art Blakey, Papa Joe Jones, Philly Joe Jones, Billy Higgins, Billy Hart, and I've been playing for a long time.
Yes, right over here.
Hi, I'm Chris Brown from Lake Ridge Middle School, and I was wondering, what are you thinking about while you're playing?
What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about what I'm trying to say to the audience. I mean, if it's something rhythmic and happy, I'm trying to convey a feeling. Well, I feel good when I play this, and I want to make you feel good. One of the things that one has to do is to be aware of the tempo of the song and to be able to do things along those lines. Chip, what are you thinking about when you play?
Well, I'm monitoring a lot of things at the same time. Where I am in the song, what I'm playing, what the drummer's playing, and what the piano player is playing, how that's all going down, and how the audience is reacting. All these things I'm thinking about at the same time, what I'm going to play. And the cool thing about jazz, I think, is that you have the ability to put in your own input while the music is happening, as opposed to in classical music where you're interpreting it, or pop music where you just play like a beat. In jazz, you can really add your personal interpretation. Like if the drummer plays something, I can instantly decide, am I going to react to that or not? And that's constantly what's going on while we're playing. If he plays a chord, I'm making these split-second decisions all the time. Am I going to play the same chord or a different note against that chord? And where is that chord going to? And how does that influence the line that I'm playing? Am I going to change my line depending on what he's playing or stick to what I'm doing? And that's what's so much fun about playing jazz. Those split-second decisions are going on all the time.
We have a call from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yeah, hello, how you doing?
Fine, how are you?
My name is Shondell, and I got a question to ask the drummer. I want to ask him what is the key to time and keeping the perfect rhythm?
I didn't hear the question again, please.
What is the key to timing?
What is the key to keeping time? Yeah.
What is the key to keeping time? Being able to keep something steady and consistent. I think for me, the main key for being able to keep time was being able to dance. Because if you can dance and dance in rhythm and time, then you're able to keep time. I think all musicians have to be able to dance.
Thank you. And another question right here.
My name is Brian Kuda, and I have a question for the bass player. What other combinations of instruments would a jazz bass player play with?
Well, that's a good question because every band needs a bass player. So it can be a big band with 15 people, 4 trumpets and 3 trombones and 5 saxophones and piano and bass, or it can be guitar and bass, or it can be piano and bass like duos, or it can be trio like this, or I've played with groups with what's that? Or you could have no rhythm section instruments. In other words, just horns and bass and drums, like Ornette Coleman did, or Jerry Mulligan played a lot without a piano or guitar. So you rarely see a bass playing as a solo. I mean, that's usually you don't see that. But otherwise, any other combination of instruments, you usually have a bass.
Thank you. There's a call. Oh, here's a call from Rockland, Massachusetts.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Good. A question for the drummer.
Okay.
I've been playing for a number of years and just starting to get really interested in jazz. And I was wondering if maybe he could demonstrate or break down when he's called upon to maybe play a faster, upbeat ride pattern, how he would break that down, and maybe is it like maybe a form of one of the rudiments, or like maybe with leaving some notes out or something? How would he approach an upbeat, faster jazz ride pattern? If you could maybe demonstrate something like that for me.
So you want him to just demonstrate slowly what he does fast? Is that your question?
Yeah, or maybe get into how he would break down a faster jazz ride pattern.
What are you doing when you play?
Without getting really tired,
Well, you just have to practice and do it so you can build up your stamina to play fast. Because usually you ride cymbal pattern. Whatever you're playing slow, you play fast. You're not leaving anything out. So if you learn how to play it slow and just work on building it up to speed, then you after a while you build up your muscles and your stamina and you'll be able to do it.
Thank you very much. We've had a good time with you, and we certainly hope you've enjoyed the things we do. Thank you for being with us. It's been a pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed the program as much as I said, as much as we've enjoyed doing it for you. And I want to remind the audience that our next live broadcast will be Tuesday, March 7th at 11 a.m. And that's when we'll have the Sogolon Marionettes from Mali with us. And so that's going to be a very exciting program. You can get in touch with our performers or by us by emailing at the address on your screen. We also invite you to visit the Kennedy Center and Prince William Network websites at the addresses on your screen also. Now, there you'll find information about upcoming programs and resources. And as we leave, I'd really like to play something that kind of pulls together all the things that we've been doing. This is the third movement of a piece I wrote called Homage, and we would like for you to be listening. Those of you who are listening on satellite, and those of you here in the room, listen for the elements of a jazz piece that we talked about. The phrases, the number of bars, the melody, the improvisation, and see if you can recognize the kind of form we're doing. For instance, in this third movement that I'm going to play, the drums start out. Now, he's going to be doing an improvisation on a melody, but you haven't heard the melody yet. We won't play the melody until after he's played. After he's played, you'll see the melody that he was improvising on. And that melody is in an A-A-B-A form. You'll find right after that, he'll lead us in to playing the blues. And we're going to close with the blues as we started with the blues. And so Homage is in the style of both of the things that we were talking about, the A-A-B-A form and the blues form. This is Homage.
Thank you.